Hi. Oh, there's four of me, including the ones of me in my glasses, and nobody deserves to see four of me, especially who can take that much pretty. Let's make it clear, though, that when I take these glasses off, I can't see any further than like about a half a foot. I could have said 6 inches and that would have worked better. But anyway, I wanted to introduce this idea of talking on the phone. I'm going to try not to blink so much. I do have dry eyes, but when I talk about it now, it's going to make me blink. About talking on the phone when you're dealing with people you don't already know. So, I'm going to divide these videos up into a series of like probably 4 or 5, maybe 3 or 4. I'm new to this, so I'm still getting used to it. But a lot of people feel like there has to be a tension there automatically in a situation where you're asking for something or you're asking for compensation for something that maybe didn't go well in a business transaction or something like that, or if you're just responding to someone who's called your house and it's not a scam call, right? So that is just all poured up with conflict as a chaser, right? So it doesn't have to ever be about conflict is the main lesson that I want to get through in this first video. Is it doesn't have ever to be about conflict when you're talking to someone on the phone about a business issue, an education issue, a warranty issue, a medicine prescription, things like that. When you're trying to get, like for us recently, a CPAP situation figured out, you don't ever have to be in conflict with the person to whom you're speaking. And I want to tell you a funny story in this first video in the series from my years ago working with the education side of a really big company. So I was working with them and I dealt with curriculum. I wrote curriculum. I worked with subject matter experts to write curriculum. And that was the job. I had started at this place as a teacher and then I was promoted up to this job. Well, they call it promotion. I should have stayed in the classroom, but that's a whole different Oprah. Don't worry about that. So this guy's name was Frank. That's all I ever knew, actually, was that his name was Frank. That was his first name. And Frank was from New York. I'm not making fun. I'm trying to sound like that because I really love the New York accent. So it sounds a lot like New Orleans, by the way, which is from my home state of Louisiana. So when I am talking to Frank every single time, and he's my point person for a particular product. Ooh, point person for a particular product. Again, say that 5 times fast. So I'd call, and again, this is not a parody of I'm just trying to make it accurate. So I would call, and I sounded Southern. I sound Southern now, and you can control that to a certain extent. But when you're just, going about your day, you're going to revert usually to how you typically sound. So I made Frank have like 3 syllables in his name. He would answer the phone. I would go, Frank, and he would not laugh. He would be so rude. And this has been so many years ago, but he was so rude to me. Now, of course, I knew that was coming from a place of pain. It typically is when people act like that. But I didn't know how to get through that to have the best relationship with Frank that I could have to be productive in our mutual interest, which was the company for which we were working, and more importantly, the students we were serving. And so I would air to Frank and literally stuff like, what? I mean, literally, that's how he answered the phone sometimes. What? So one day, and I worked through it, and I was kind the whole time. It's really hard. I have a thick skin. That's why I know it's going to be okay on YouTube because it's really hard to insult me. It's been done many times, and, bigger people than Frank have tried. At any rate, not that Frank's not a wonderful person because it ends up that he is. That's the story has a happy ending. So Frank one day answers the phone and I need him to do something with a course that's in a learning management system that e-college is what it used to be called, but I don't know if e-college is even around anymore. Anyway, I digress. So I say, Frank, probably, and what? And I just took a moment, I took a beat, and I was already practicing this in a lot of my other, phone conversations. And I said, Frank, why are you always so unkind to me? Total silence. total silence on the other end of the phone. And he said, and I'm not even going to try to do his accent. It's a great accent, though, at this point. It's too many words for me to do it. He said, I'm not being unkind. I said, well, that's how I perceive it. And would it be okay if, when we talk to each other in the future, you think of me as like your sister or, I didn't want to say your daughter because I don't want to imply his age, or, a close friend or someone you really like, because it sort of hurts my feelings when we're on the phone every single time. And really, it did a little. But I also said to him, I think it affects our working relationship. We have to deal with each other so much. Could we just be buddies, basically? And he was flabbergasted at the idea that I had perceived him as being rude. Our cultures were different, obviously. Um, he didn't realize. So the first lesson about all of this is, when you're in that phone conversation, it's usually going to be worse there because the person isn't having to look at you, right? And someone is just not thinking about how your side of the conversation feels. Don't get angry. I think in this society, so many times we'd rather tell each other to F off than to just say, hey, that hurt my feelings, or hey, I don't think we're communicating effectively with each other, and could we unpack that a little bit? So the first thing is to be authentic and to go in that conversation understanding that you and the person with whom you're speaking may not be coming from the same places. And step one is to get each other in the same place, right? People may not always respond to that, but you know that you're doing your best to have a productive conversation. And how you feel about yourself is super important. We're going to talk in lesson 2 about that very fact, how it doesn't really matter how anybody else thinks about you when you're in a phone conversation, or really, to be honest, ever. Okay. So, anyway, I love you so much. And I hope that you're having a wonderful day, evening, night, morning, whatever it is where you are. Go in peace and love to serve others. Come back for the second part of the lesson. You are, again, so loved. Mwah.